In today's video, we're taking a look at some trade talk around the Montreal Canadiens and Toronto Maple Leafs, plus we have some further updates on the next possible moves for the Ottawa Senators and some major concerns for the Flyers and their new head coach, John Tortorella, and we have another signing and PTO as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and some trade talk to take a look at here today. First up, we do have another signing that came not too long ago. Earlier tonight, we have the LA Kings and young defenseman Mikey Anderson coming to an agreement. The RFA defenseman's been some time going through negotiations here, but they've settled on a 1-year, $1 million contract, which will make him an RFA again next summer, except this time he will have arbitration rights. So the Kings and Anderson come to an agreement. He certainly has increased his value to the team and is getting a bigger role. So I do expect him to continue to grow with that team and hopefully get a longer term deal next time, as long as things keep progressing the way that they have been. Former Anaheim Duck and Pittsburgh Penguin, I think he's played for another team or two besides that as well, but Dominic Simon seems to be leaving the NHL. He's going back to play in the Czech Republic. I'm not sure how long the contract that he signed, so he at least will be gone for the coming season. Difficult to say if he will at some point try to make a return and give the NHL another go, but he has been bouncing around, kind of playing a smaller role in a variety of teams here for the last number of seasons. And veteran defenseman Nathan Beaulieu seems to be getting a PTO in Anaheim. So obviously he's been able to, like some of these other guys, which is a little bit surprising, unable to secure at least a short-term contract. Beaulieu is a guy who's been for most teams, been a 6'7" defenseman. Really hasn't materialized to be a bigger role. I mean, he was drafted fairly high, and I thought based on his junior play, because I did get to see him play and develop in St. John for the Sea Dogs, looked like he might have a real promising NHL career, and he's certainly prolonged his career and has had a decent one for sure, but certainly hasn't really been I guess as big of a player and big of a name as some might have expected when he was younger, but most recently played for the Winnipeg Jets. He's played in Montreal, of course a few other teams as well, but he'll go to Anaheim. There is opportunity there with the Ducks. They certainly were looking to maybe add a little bit more of a veteran presence, so we will see if he gets a 1-year contract possibly out of that PTO. But as like I've said, for some of these other guys going on professional tryouts, even the teams that they're in camp with, even if they decide that they're not interested or there just isn't the room or the ability to put them on the roster on a permanent contract, other teams are going to be watching them, especially during preseason action, and if they do well, you could still garner interest from other teams. It does happen occasionally where a player goes to camp with one team on a PTO and actually ends up getting signed somewhere else. Not real common, but it has happened on occasion. Now, as I mentioned, Elliotte Friedman had some more discussion points, I guess you could say, in the Ottawa Senators. We know that Pierre Dorion has had one heck of a summer, made a variety of moves, for the most part, all very, very positive. I know the fan base is very excited. Lots of things to be optimistic about moving forward with this franchise. Obviously, plans are in place and development in progress towards a new downtown arena. Of course, it's far from a done deal, but certainly a lot of good steps have been taken, and they're on the right path and right direction to hopefully get that done. Right now, there's no reason to think they won't. It will take some time, of course, before things are a little bit more official. They're at the stage now where they're negotiating a lease and finalizing building plans and things like that. They have a couple more hurdles to get over before they can put shovels on the ground and get going. So they're likely still looking at least 2, if not more likely 3 years before the arena would be ready. But with this young core, all largely locked up now long term, that's very promising. They can still continue to play in Canada at the Canadian Tire Center and hopefully have some better seasons going into by the time the new arena is ready. But what would their next potential move be? Well, we know that they still want to add on the blue line. That's no secret. Pierre Dorion's even made mention in interviews saying that GMs see him coming a mile away now, because they certainly have seen all the other moves that he's made, and it's no secret that they want to add a right shot top 4D if possible, or a left shot D who can play the right side, which is a little more challenging for some, and not everybody likes to play on their weak side, but some do and can succeed at it quite well. So we know they've been linked to Jacob Chychrun, but besides making that kind of move internally, that is, what else might be on the horizon? And Elliotte Friedman says the next player they're likely going to try to lock up is defenseman Artem Zub. Of course, came over from Russia a couple of years back and has been a real nice addition to the Senators' blue line, a real stabilizing kind of defenseman. Nothing flashy about his game, not going to get a ton of offense, but he's just a stabilizer. He's good in his own end, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, just does a lot of the little things right, allows a guy like Thomas Chabot to be more of a roamer and rover out there and to do the things he does offensively and not have to worry about, leaving the defense exposed so much. Kind of like what Mark Mathot did for Erik Karlsson for Senators fans for a long time, of course. If you've been a long-time Sens fans, that's a deep pair you'd be very familiar with and seen what that kind of did for Karlsson's game. And Zub can do the same sort of thing for offensive D like Chabot, or if he ends up playing with Jake Sanderson down the road. Same sort of idea. So rumor has it that Zub obviously wants to get a long-term commitment on his next contract, whether that be Ottawa or elsewhere, but it's believed that they'd like to possibly get a 4 or 5 year deal in place. He's likely going to be looking for a bit more money. He's got a raise on his last contract compared to the first one. Things have worked out. We have no reason to think he's not happy and enjoying his time with the Sens. He spent most of the summer in Ottawa training and with the other group. So certainly, like I said, things are all trending very positively for him, and it could be yet another member who they really value, who's still young enough to be with the team for a long time that they could be looking at. And Friedman also went on to talk about a lot of things that are likely going on behind the scenes as well. He said there's a lot of other moves that have been very positive, not necessarily with the on-ice product. Like he referenced the fact that veteran alumni members like Chris Phillips and Chris Neal are back in the fold working with the organization. Obviously, Daniel Alfredsson's going to the Hall of Fame in the next Hall of Fame class. A celebration will be coming up soon. So all kinds of things that way to be looking forward to. Season ticket sales have been up tremendously. Of course, with the agreement on the arena that they're working on, we know what the last time they went at this, of course, when Eugene Melnyk was still alive and still with us, tried to do this and end up, partnering with John Ruddy, and they ended up in litigation, and some of those lawsuits are not completely settled yet. So, of course, behind the scenes, they're trying to kind of still look after a lot of that stuff and kind of make things go away, because they've had nothing but positive press for so long. It's just been refreshing to see such a quick turnaround in direction for all aspects of the team in really just a few short months. So it's been quite a turnaround for the team. And he said there's still lots of other things going on behind the scenes, business-wise, that you can expect positive outcomes for the Senators, which is finally good to see. But if they can lock up Artem Zub as well, that'll be another defenseman. Like I said, he would be well worth it. Not going to get a ton of money. Probably looking at, I'm guessing maybe around $4.5 million, something in that range for 4 or 5 years would be great for the young Russian defenseman that's become very popular in Ottawa and a good stabilizer. Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, a team we want to talk about as well. The situation with Rasmus Sandin's kind of gone off the rails a little bit, so to speak. He still remains unsigned. We're getting awfully close to training camp. No contract in place, and I know there's a possibility that he may miss part or all the training camp at this point, depending on how things go. I mean, obviously at this point, Sandin is, doesn't seem to be willing to change his stance, and I don't entirely blame him. Like, essentially, he feels he's earned a ability to be a full-time NHLer, and with the way they have their decor structured, the players in front of him, it's just not going to allow him to be an everyday player, and he's not going to get a lot of playing time, so he's not happy about that, essentially, and I do understand. I do at the same time know that he's young, and as much as he has played well at times, he's still learning and developing at the same time as well. I know the Leafs were very much looking forward to hopefully getting him under the same sort of contract that they signed fellow young defenseman and kind of grew up together in the organization, Timothy Liljegren, a bit. He got a $1.4 million deal for 2 years. I know Sandin was reportedly looking for more than that, over 2. I think he was looking somewhere between 2 and 3 on at least a 2-year deal to get him to his next contract as an RFA with Allred. So we'll see where this goes. I don't see the Leafs trading a left-shot defenseman in front of them. I mean, there was some talk earlier in the offseason that maybe they would end up doing that, but you got Morgan Riley, you got TJ Brody, you've got Jake Muzzin, you got Mark Giordano. Of course, Brody normally plays his offside, but besides that, you've got Liljegren, you've got Hall in the mix. Justin Hall's been in the trade room mill forever, and I think the only main reason at this point that they haven't really attempted moving him is because Sandin remains unsigned. They don't have a lot of right shot D anyhow, so they'd probably want to, ideally somebody's going to have to probably play their offside if Hall goes, which creates another issue in who that's going to be. There was some talk that Sandin wasn't overly comfortable doing that. But certainly a situation where it doesn't make sense for them to move a D if Sandin's not signed, because they're not really going to be needing to, right? But obviously by signing Sandin, that's going to put them in a situation with the salary cap that they'd be forced to make a cost-cutting move. Right now they are over the cap a little bit, but they can get under by trimming the roster, probably going with a 20-man roster to start the season. They can put a player or two through waivers if need be, and they can get themselves to be cap compliant because they're not over by a whole lot. The number of forwards they have on the roster right now, including guys on PTOs like Zach Aston-Reese, I would think you're probably going to see a possibility of guys like Kyle Clifford and maybe even Wayne Simmons going through waivers before the season starts and maybe be demoted. I don't know if they'll get claimed or not. Hard to say in that front, but they can do things like that to become cap compliant. But at this point, as much as we all suspected a cap dump for Justin Hall, I just, it doesn't make sense until Sandin signs. So we'll have to see. I wonder if the Sandin situation will get resolved or if that could lead to a trade. I do wonder about that. There's been some speculation, too, that if Zach Aston-Reese is a player the Leafs want to sign, they might have to trade Alex Kerfoot as a cap dump. And I don't necessarily see that being the case. They're certainly not interchangeable players at all. Kerfoot's going to give you a lot more offense. At least you can put him in the top six if need be. You can put him on the third line, where to me, Zach Aston-Reese is more of a fourth line defensive player, penalty killer. Certainly used in a different scenario, not interchangeable at all, in my opinion. So I don't really see that being the case. Could another player go if they want to sign Aston-Reese? Absolutely, but I don't think it would be a guy like him. I think you're more likely to see like a Clifford, Simmons, like those other fourth line veterans that may not necessarily end up finding themselves a role and might find themselves on the outside looking in to have to be able to get playing time, either due to injury or if somebody's not playing well or something like that. I don't know how they're going to handle like young guys like Nick Robertson. Is he going to be able to crack the roster? Doesn't look promising, really. I'm not sure what to think of Robertson, not to do with his own play, but just where he fits in our roster considering all the number of players that they've brought in. So the Leafs are going to be an interesting team to watch here, and I'd be curious to see how this Sandin situation plays out. In Philly, I mentioned the other day that Tortorella was on the radio on Sirius XM and made some comments about being concerned. I want to expand on that a little bit. It really does kind of give you a sense that the things are really messy in Philadelphia, and he's already learning about that, and he's not even really run a training camp yet, but based on the fact he said he's been going back and forth all offseason trying to get himself situated, moved to Philly. He's met with some players, met with obviously Chuck Fletcher a number of times and other members of the organization. He was asked on the radio about, where Claude Giroux was a longtime captain for like a decade, what do they have intentions of maybe replacing him and getting a new captain. And he said he was in absolutely no rush. It doesn't make sense for the team to quickly name a captain. And then he went on to say that he had major concerns about the room, major concerns on what goes on in the room. And he says you can't get squat done on the ice until you get your room straightened out. So certainly it sounds like there's certainly some dysfunction going on in there. I'm not sure to what extent, but as I mentioned before, I do think the Flyers are going to be a team to watch closely at the beginning of the season. I don't know that Tortorella is really going to have a lot of, he's not going to be on a hot seat or anything like that. He just got there, and if it takes a little bit of pain in the beginning to sort out who stays and who goes before they start moving and trending in the right direction, I wouldn't be shocked if the first 15, 20 games don't go super well for the Flyers. We're going to see some guys maybe traded out. Like I mentioned before, you got 1 year left on JVR. You get Travis Konechny, who could be a valuable piece. Not to say that Konechny's part of the problem. It's just he's young enough and has enough skill that I think teams would be interested based on his past at least. We'll see. I mean, some guys are tied up too long term. You're not going to see guys like Kevin Hayes or Sean Couturier moved. Provorov would be interesting. I don't know if teams will be willing to take a chance on that, given what he's used to before, but we'll see. But the Flyers are going to be interesting, no doubt, to start the year. And in Montreal, and we talked about the Habs yesterday, but more reports from Eric Engels talking about the fact, continuing on from yesterday, so to speak, saying that the Habs are really going to do whatever they can to create salary cap space before the season starts, and that their full intent is to try to move a more significant salary before the season gets underway. They certainly, are tied up against it with the moves they've made. They have LTIR room, big amount with Carey Price's contract, but they've also have a ton of body. So you're looking for a more significant contract, whether it be like a Mike Hoffman or an Armia or a Dvorak or somebody in that forward group, because they have way too many forwards and they need the space and they need it badly. And like I said before, I wouldn't be shocked. They might want to bring back a cheaper, younger, well, maybe not even younger, even if it's a veteran, just a right-shot defenseman, somebody who can play some minutes and take the pressure off some of their kids there, who can come a lot cheaper than some of those forwards that they have right now, would be preferable. So look for Montreal to continue to be active. I think a Jake Allen contract extension is still in the works as well. I'm not sure how quickly that's going to come together, but reports are they're still looking and offering probably around a 2-year extension on that front, but we'll have to see. But Montreal going to be an active team here. Like I said, they have their eye on a few prospects too between Vancouver and the Rangers, and I do think we're going to see multiple deals. And I mentioned before, I wouldn't be ruled out a Montreal-Edmonton trade too if the Oilers decide they want to do something else. I won't be shocked if Tyson Barrie is moved. Not going to be saying it's a given he gets traded. I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if they went down that road, if they found an opportunity to upgrade another part of the team. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.